And you're welcome back. Now it's time for a big story here, the third hour for Breakfast Extra inside of our weekend installation. 2025 tested Nigeria's political system. From the pushback against Tinubu-era reforms to debates over shifting the 2027 elections to 2026, power and policy repeatedly collided with public sentiment. The declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State and record foreign investment promises also defied this year, raising hard questions about federal authority, democratic process, and economic credibility as well. Now, across the country, citizens responded with a mix of hope, fatigue, and also skepticism. While government spoke of reform and stability, many Nigerians measured success by rising living costs, security gaps, and whether political decisions were truly people-centered.
And so to unpack this year and all that's happened at the political scene, we're joined by two guests. First is Devoe Okorie. He's a political and public affairs analyst, and he joins us virtually. Also joining us is Segun Sopitan. He's a current affairs analyst and joins us live in the studio. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for coming on, and compliments of the season. Let's have a thorough look at 2025. Hopefully the 1 hour will help us in terms of policy as we look at power policy and public trust. And let me start with you, Devoe, right? And just let's start with the ruling party's defense of the 2025 reforms that have shaped, public perception of governance. What do you make of the ruling party and all that they've done in terms of governance?
Thank you for having me once again, and Merry Christmas to everyone in the studio and our audience. It's really been, what I call it, a hectic year. As they say, when it rains, it pours, and the APC, I would say in terms of political score sheets, in terms of politics, they have scored pretty well. I mean, if you just go by the gale of defections from other political parties, literally what should have been Nigeria's credible opposition, the APC has found a way to snooker, especially at the highest level of subnationals, that's state governors. I think about 6 of them crossed over from the PDP into the APC, making the APC more or less a behemoth in Nigeria. Now, whilst in one hand we are, in terms of political dexterity, when there's time, we would discuss what was the icing on the cake or the honey that attracted all these governors and top officials. Remember, it's not just governors. You also have legislative men and women moving over into the APC from the Labour Party, from the PDP, as well as the NNPP, all crossing over into the APC. So in terms of political dexterity, I would say, yes, the APC has played well in politics, but it must be said, politics, was it not about the people? Is it not about the leadership and the governance of the people? And you cannot say you have good politics if the governance is below zero, is substandard, is failing. And when you begin to compare or highlight levels of governance in, let's start with the subnationals, you begin to see that many of our states, despite increased revenue, have not done too well. You cannot be presenting the same level of delivery when your budget was 50% less and saying that you have delivered. What did you do with the money? You cannot be saying that you've been able to deliver the dividends of democracy, and many of our subnationals are suffering high levels of insecurity because, like Tinubu did say during the End Bad Governance protest to the people, that, look, I just have the federation budget. The remaining 50% lies with the states because the states who bully the local governments have more or less 51% control of that resource. So to a large extent, the power lies in those men who call themselves chief security servants of the states. By extension, if the chief servants of security officers of the states have not been delivering security balance and stability, then you begin to ask what happened to our own representatives. And those are the 390 representatives in the House of Reps and about 109 senators who are supposed to be representing their constituencies. And what we have seen across this year is an establishment of, what I call it, we're being nice by calling them a rubber stamp assembly. We have destroyed democracy completely, because democracy has two legs. It has leadership, and it has what they call the followership, or the base, or the masses of the people. Why do we say a democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people? It shows you the people play a major role. And those who are at the front, who are representatives, who we presume were elected, are meant to be representing, mirroring the eyes and the views of the people. But what we have seen is, how do we call it, a shifting of goalposts, whereby members of the opposite team started playing own goals. Members of the legislative started speaking always in the interest of the executive, not expressly as to what Nigerians felt. To the extent that if we start looking at all the laws they have broken, all the laws that they have denied, they have played a blind eye to, all the situations which they have tried their best to make it look like, the executive have not done anything wrong, then we as a people, we literally, that's where we have lost our hope. So what this does is that, though you've seen a lot of politicking or politricking amongst political parties and elected officials at different levels of government, be it the federal, the state, or even the local governments, which they've still kept crippled and moribund, we cannot say that that level of astute politricking has led to equal and commensurate delivery of justice, equal and commensurate delivery of security, equal and commensurate delivery of distributed economic gains.
So, Devoe, now a quick question for you before I move to Mr. Sopitan here in the studio with us. If you want to compare what's happened throughout 2025, how underwhelming has governance been? How underwhelming has the executive or legislature been at their efforts at reform? If you're going to give it a score.
I like the word reform. You would have thought that with a rubber stamp assembly, maybe they could have passed the laws of state policing by now. But we've had different NEC meetings, we've had different state of council meetings, we've had different Nigerian group of governors, NGF. We've had different meetings all on insecurity. Yet we've not been able to equip our states with adequate security to be able to quell and address the insecurity we're facing as a people. It took the presence or the intervention.
How underwhelming would you say it has been? Because I want to link that to a question I have for Segun here in the studio. So if you were going to give it a score out of 10, or if you want to compare it to the previous year.
I know you're going on a scale of 1 to 10. I would give it 2 over 10.
2
because
over 10.
Literally,
and this is how
2
far,
over 10.
This is how far down from what we were the previous year. The previous year, you'd say it was what?
Yes, because the two cardinal issues that could have made the major difference in this democracy. One, local government autonomy, okay, which is where governance is best felt. They've kept that crippled till date. They've not been able to pass it. Right. Secondly, state policing, which was supposed to bring a balance, which was supposed to bring an improvement, some efficiency, some effectiveness in security. Look at where we are now.
Okay, then Devoe. All right, then Devoe.
As they say, our backs are wide open, and foreign bodies, foreign partners are sending missiles into our land. Never heard of before. It's abominable. 2 over 10 is even an understatement. I think it's even below 0, because we must say what the legislative have a job to do. And if they're not doing their job, clearly we are failing as a people. We're failing as a nation.
All right, Devoe, it's very difficult to get you to stop, but thank goodness I have now. But thank you very much. Great submissions. So, Segun, based on what Devoe has said when it comes to governance, the lack of it, or the lack of reform generally, how does this translate to people currently, their trust, their preference, or even who they would like to see come 2027 in governance?
Well, politics, so a lot of the things that Devoe has said has hinged around the politics, and all of that. And at the end of the day, the politics should be about the people and the delivery of good governance to the people. And unfortunately, we're far off the mark. We're almost like a boat that is adrift. And the people can feel this. They can feel it in their daily lived experiences. And I think that I hear a sense of despondency when you speak to people, when you interact with people. You go on TV shows like this where there's a calling opportunity and people calling, and the sentiments that you hear is one of almost hopelessness. despite the narrative that is being pushed very aggressively by the government, talking about renewed hope, running campaign jingles, trying to tell people that we've turned the corner, and all of that. But the lived experience is anything but. So you find that the people are thinking to themselves, which way forward? What's the way out? 2027 is approaching, and if you scan the landscape, you struggle to find one single figure that you can say is a beacon of hope that people can align behind and hope that maybe that person would come save them. The opposition is in absolute, complete chaos and disorder. You have politicians jostling for ambition without necessarily thinking about how their actions will result in an outcome that is different from what we've experienced in the last 3 years.
Have we ever seen the kind of cross-carpeting that we saw in 2025 ever in Nigerian history, political history? Before?
I mean, it's alarming. If you are an observer and somebody that's followed Nigerian politics, for long enough a time, this has never happened. If you do a count today, out of 36 states and the FCT, you've got 30. It's 28 at the moment that are APC governors, right?
So the argument must be that if we've never had this kind of an experience before, then it must be good for Nigeria. Because from everything else we've tried, whether there's opposition or with all the opposition we've had from before, it's still been bad. What if we had unity in the APC alignments that we see going on?
The entire premise of democracy is about contest of ideas, for the votes of the people. And how can there be a contest if there's only one party? So it can't be good for Nigeria to have 30 of the 36 states in one party. Especially the type of democracy that we practice in this country, the votes are determined by the governors to a very large extent. Whoever controls those governors' votes will win. So at the moment, you struggle to see how, in spite of the abysmal performance of this administration, you struggle to see how they can be punished, in quotes, by the people by voting them out. Because there's no pathway to that at the moment.
What does that say about the powers in being able to sow the seeds that he's sown so much and being able to lure over 28 governors and also disintegrate all the opposition in its entirety?
It's a form of politics that is
diabolical.
Is diabolical and is counterproductive, even at the end of the day, to his own interests. Because at the end of the day...
Why do you say counterproductive?
First of all, how do these defections, how have they happened? It's been a mix of everything. It's almost as if there is no floor that you can't go below. So it's a mix of coercion, cajolment, enticement, using of EFCC, using of state of emergency and the threats thereof, and all of that to win people over to your party. So it's almost as if, look, it's the ambition for 2027 re-election and nothing else matters. You can destroy and desecrate our constitution. You can destroy and desecrate the institutions of state and government. The judiciary is captured. The legislature is captured. All on the altar of winning the next election. This is not a democracy anymore. This is really just about the ambition of one man and a few of his acolytes and all of that. And Nigeria is the loser, because if a president or a party does not have the fear that they could lose the next election, then what's the incentive for doing well by the people? Why should they bother to try and put in policies in place that people will say, oh yes, this is amazing, I want to vote for them again? They know they don't need us anymore, because as it stands today, unless something dramatic happens, the APC wins in 2027.
It makes you wonder at the core of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and its administration. One of the things that he's done is he understands perception and PR and media, and how it's always good to talk to the people, but he uses his media team. And the narrative has been the economy is recovering, we're on a path of progress, we're on a path of prosperity, but this is again, we're on a year-on-year decline in terms of celebratory mood when you see Christmas, people not being able to spend money, people not being able to travel. So I do have to ask that, did this administration lose focus in terms of power, getting more when it comes to power? They want to be more focused on power, and they shift their base to power instead of economy.
Absolutely, you know, and I wouldn't necessarily characterize this as a loss of focus. I don't think the focus was ever about the people and governance. You know, and to make that point that you started with, I was just speaking with my wife just yesterday as we were driving through my estate. And, you know, it was shocking. It was evening, and I could count. This is an estate that has about 300 buildings. I could count literally less than 5 houses. It's a middle-income estate, so it's not poor people.
You're right.
Right? Only less than 5 had Christmas lights outside their homes.
I knew that was going to be where you were going.
It's crazy, because I was saying, look, last year it wasn't like this in my estate, right? And that's a very simple, subtle indicator as to where we are. Things are worse. Regardless of what the president has been saying and his team, things have gotten worse.
I want to find out from Devoe. Devoe, do you have Christmas decorations out this year? Devoe?
I'm not sure I received cows and goats like we did before. I guess ever since the cost of living crisis came on board, Christmas has gotten dampened for the majority of Nigerians. Now, this is not to say it hasn't gotten better for some. As you can see, even the Dirty December festivities create an alternate planet.
Yeah, exactly. I was telling Judith that the other day, but she doesn't believe me. But Judith, before we go into that argument,
just a second. My name has been pointed out here. I have to defend myself. I feel like Nigerians, the locals, you know, we were day here. You know, we know the realities. The IJGBs are on a different purchasing power as opposed to us. If you convert $1 to a naira, that's what, 1,500. They're on a different plane, and so the hospitality sector are enjoying themselves to the maximum. But also the price have also changed as well to accommodate those people as well. And so I still strongly believe that Dirty December, the markups will still be high in terms of influx and sales, but it's not the same for the locals.
But that's not your question, Devoe. Devoe, let's bring it back now. Let's talk about the review for 2025 as we discuss democratic process and election integrity, especially election integrity. This year we saw a new INEC chairman in the name of Professor Sopitan from before, of course. We know who it was. Only this year he is now an ambassador, a diplomat. And many wondered whether this was not a scheme to reward for your good job from last year. So it brings the question integrity in our election process. For 2025, how did we fare with everything that happened? Have we brought the masses closer to the process of elections? Do they trust any better than they did the previous year? Or do you think it's gotten worse as we move towards 2027, Devoe?
Yes, I'm afraid elections and electioneering will only mirror what we have been saying about our type of politics. And to what we had said earlier, Nigeria has descended from a democracy into what we call gangsters as Democrats. And I say that, and I repeat myself, gangsters as Democrats, whereby, you know, most times we say the ideology is not about the people. Yes, that's true, and it has to be accepted, because we were all here when the PDP was in power, and the APC used the tools of propaganda, not just to bring down the PDP, but to enlighten people and expose the rot in the PDP. Now, what happened when they got into power? What happened is, it's not like the APC changed, but the same way they put the watchful eyes on the presidency and governance when they were in opposition, they kept quiet about it during the Buhari years. And what you saw was, even internally within the APC, they had their own divisions, which led to the philosophy of Emiloko, which was basically with the transition of Buhari into Tinubu. It was a case of, okay, well, since you didn't let me perform as we had planned, now it's my turn. It's my theater. Allow me to act. I don't want to hear pim from anybody. Now, what that has led to is, like I said, my way or the highway, whereby even if Tinubu is playing the politics of quelling the opposition, okay, I lay the responsibility even on the opposition. If you were better than the ruling party, like the APC was better than the PP when they were in power, you wouldn't falling for the cookies, falling for the pies and the honey and the milk that they have been giving you. And we're all aware of how keeping your second tenure was put on the table. Even if it was your second tenure, your candidate that you had in mind was put on the table simply because the government was going to maneuver or manipulate the instruments of the INEC, okay, the organs of election, manipulate the organs of the police, manipulate the organs of the security forces during elections. Professor Muputan, who is the new INEC chairman, he had his first day on the table during the Anambra elections. I mean, we don't have time to even go through all the mishaps that took place. Now, my issue, okay, is that as we keep promoting gangsterism in government, in politics, what we are doing is that we're killing that word despondency. We're killing the level of apathy grows higher. Okay, meaning, for example, who comes out for local government elections again? That shows you a level of federative politics is dead. Okay, we move to the state level. Now, we're still debating whether we should compound the presidential and the state elections on the same day, because what we have seen is many people concentrate only on the federal presidential elections. Then on the state elections, it's literally most people don't come out. What you're seeing is the complete disappearance. Now, what happens is that if everybody moves to one side and there's not really a fiery or strong opposition out there, it's not about numbers now, it's about even presence. Prior to this time, remember, like I said, APC was the playbook for opposition politics in Nigeria. Clearly, the PDP, the Labour Party, the NMPP have not been able to learn from the good books of the APC. How much noise, and when I say noise, how much clamor, how much opposition? Take a look at their members in the National Assembly. Right. Anytime there's a point for them to stand up and to send a strong signal that there's a different view, a different perspective to what is happening, many of them comply.
Devoe,
many of them cave like a... Yes, please.
Yeah, you set the tone. So I'm going to let Mr. Sopitan take it from here, right? Mr. Sopitan, you said something earlier, and you said that governors are the ones who sort of secure the elections at presidential level. And what we're seeing this mass defections with 28 states. Will a new INEC chairman make a difference? And we've also seen how the off-cycle elections have been marred with, low voter turnout and one will say voter apathy. Do you see this new INEC restoring confidence in voters to come out en masse and vote? And even if they come out en masse and vote, will they follow the ways of their governors? Mr. Sopitan.
Well, to start with, the person of the new INEC chairman, from all that we've heard about him, person of integrity, very cerebral, and all of that. So you will think
Wike was once in integrity as well.
Absolutely. And you will think that would mean, hopefully, that things would get better with the administration or elections. However, if you then juxtapose that with what's happened with Mahmoud Yakubu, right? I mean, it's a very powerful signal to send to an umpire who is supposed to be unbiased, right? That as soon as he's done with his tenure, there's an ambassadorial position waiting for you. So everything is wrong with just the optics of that alone. And that already sets a tone in the minds of the people like, look, it's a waste of time, right? So the apathy that we have seen in the past, 28% turnout, for the 2023 elections, and even that number, is in question as to the integrity thereof, will probably get worse because people have lost faith completely. The only way out, of that and what will bring the confidence of the people back is for the National Assembly to do what they need to do and take some powers away from INEC, the power of discretion with regards to how to administer the elections and how to transmit results. We have to have elections where results are being displayed in real time. It's possible. It's done all over the world, right? You monitor the United States elections and you are seeing state by state.
The colors were changing.
The colors are changing in real time by county, right down to the county level. You are seeing the votes coming in. If we don't go to that, then people are going to just stay at home.
Yeah, but that's not fail-proof, is it? No,
I mean,
because tech is,
I mean, it's never.
nothing is fail-proof.
Never.
But seeing the measures that happened in entirety of 2025 and seeing how the governors have all defected and assuring votes in the millions.
Absolutely.
With or without turnouts.
Absolutely.
Do you think that the INEX chairman's integrity and being a man of principle and word will be relevant in this situation?
It's all absolutely, without wanting to sound like doom and gloom and all that, it's all absolutely
back end of a bull.
Useless, because we know from right now that the votes will probably not count and the governors will deliver the votes that are needed, whether people come out to vote, like you said, or not. And that has to be the focus. Look, if this president is somebody who is legacy-minded, as some people tend to want us to believe, gaslight Nigerians into thinking that way, then he will be thinking about his place in history and how he will leave the country and its electoral process. But unfortunately, our politicians don't think about legacy, don't think about their name, what history will say about them. They think about their own ambition, so...
I've got a very interesting question here.
Yeah.
Based on perhaps maybe conversations you've had with regular people of different class, what did they think about Mahmoud's acceptance of that position as a diplomat? Now that's one. On the other hand, do you think, with all the accolades we've given Sopitan, who've talked about him as a cerebral person, that if after his tenure as INEC chairman, do you think he will accept such a position as Mahmoud did?
I think that if you look at the evidence of history, and the best way to predict what will happen in future is to look at what's happened in the past. It's one of the most effective ways. And if you look at that, you will think that, I feel sorry for Sopitan already. I think that his integrity, everything he's worked for in the last 50-something years of his life is probably going to be washed down the drain at the end of this already, even before now. Wow. Just because the system that he's coming into.
It's very worrying, right? If you look at the former governor, one-time minister of power and housing, and that's, Mr. Fashola, and seeing how, all that played out during the NSARS, this is a man who was rightfully respected by Lagosians, and because of how much work he put into Lagos, he went on to take two parastatals, even though, that's a different conversation entirely. But every single person who decides to sort of kiss the ring, they give up something.
Absolutely.
And it's concerning. Do they not worry about legacy, or is it because Nigerians are myopic, or we have amnesia and we forget?
You can't be too absolute there in that submission. So let's...
I take it back. I take it back.
Yeah, don't be too absolute.
I think it's a matter of the system more than anything else. I think that the system forces on people a situation where they are pretty much helpless. And we can count, we can keep going. Let me give you another example. Professor Yemi Oshibajo, before he became vice president, look, you lap up every word that this guy, even during the presidency of Buhari, this guy was a shining light in quotes. He said all the right things. He would post a picture of him engaging with some ordinary guy in far distant Sokoto. He would post a picture of himself and his wife, and that resonated with people. People loved this guy to a certain degree. Where is he now? Where's his integrity? Where is his honor? I guess you could argue, and some people, who defend things like this would argue that, look, the man is still right there, he's right up there. But I think that Nigerians have found him out.
You believe the Nigerian system is made to break.
So it will cost you. It will cost you eventually. And you can look at all the people with integrity before they went into office and what's happened to them afterwards, and it's a very sad narrative.
Someone said that I have too much high moral of myself and that I've not been tested yet. I said, let the money touch me. Let me see.
Devoe, let's come back to you. Let's start something else. Let's talk about federal power and state autonomy here. I was actually going to talk about, let's talk about federal power and state autonomy. Let's take a look about the balance of authority when it comes to federal versus state. Let's use one state in particular. Let's talk about Rivers State and what happened with the emergency rule declaration. What does that tell us about the balance of power between Abuja and every other state? How does that disturb democracy in itself, if it does?
Well, yes. You know, now in hindsight, we can talk about river states easily. However, it's the worst lesson in politics whereby a country, meaning from the presidency down to the National Assembly that endorsed it, actually endorsed the manipulation of our constitution to purport state capture. Remember what we were told, that there was imminent crisis? Not even a pint of blood was spilt, and yet a state of emergency, troops were moved in, and in quotes, under the measures of extraordinary measures, a state governor and the legislative were suspended. Now, the debate of that came 9 months after even the suspension was removed. Now, so there's no point debating the wrong that was done, okay? Now, what was even left of the states? Because you see, we need to begin to connect political actions with the outcomes. Okay, at the end of the day, the suspension was lifted. We now heard the undercurrents of what really happened, and then the governor, that's Fubara, now becomes a puppet of the state's machinery, whereby to the extent that him and his oppressor, the FCT minister, former governor, now come out with two hands saying that the fight is over. Whose fight is over? Is it between two politicians or within the people who are supposed to be the beneficiaries, the river state? They're the ones I pity. And the point here is, you see, at the end of the day, we can spend the whole day talking about our politicians, but we actually need to spend more time talking about the people, the Nigerian people, the masses, at the federal level, at the state level, like you mentioned. Tell me how much the people of river states, how far their state has grown. I mean, I call myself an adopted son of river states because I grew up in Port Harcourt at a particular time in my life. I went back there about last year, and literally, I could not see development, okay? When you only develop this capital city, you have not developed a state, okay? When you build one or two roads to a few popular politicians' hometowns, you have not developed the state. What I expect to see is that I expect to see, I even passed the road, the east-west road that was supposed to be the artery for transportation in the Niger Delta. Despite the Minister of Niger Delta, despite the NDDC intervention, despite the 13% derivation, despite the allocation that was increased that's coming to the states, the Niger, the east-west road is still moribund. If the Cameroon dam is opened once again, that excess water will cascade and make nonsense once more of the Niger Delta that provides 85% or to 90% of our FX revenue in the country. Our states are not developing. The same level of gangster politics at the federal level is taking root. It's even worse at the state level. Because the state assemblies are caricatures. Yes.
Devoe, apologies. I'll have to cut you because we have run out of time and we would like Segun's submission here on this matter. So Segun, if you do not mind and if you can be summary, what do you think about the balance of power between the federal and the state? How does that affect the people themselves? What are we looking at come 2027? Will this change? Will the people change it?
On that, this precedent, and this is very critical, you know, it's winner takes all. It's a zero-sum game, you know. There is no balance of power. The power is overwhelmingly concentrated at the center now, and the states are almost as badly an appendage of the federal government as the local governments are appendages of the states now. What's happening at the state level is that they are all kowtowing to the center, to the federal level, because of their personal ambitions, either because they want a second term, or because they want to go to the Senate, or because they want to install somebody.
To the cross-carpeting of
yes,
governors.
Exactly. You know, so at the end of the day, the ultimate losers are the people. You know, because ordinarily the people should be at the center of all of these conversations.
So the people cross-carpeting carpets as well. Are they moving as their governors
they're
are
confused.
They're
looking left, they're looking center.
Isn't it stomach infrastructure? It's all about stomach infrastructure when it comes to the locals.
For the locals.
You know, for the locals. And I think at the grassroots level, local government levels, and LCDA, you see that is all about stomach infrastructure.
Absolutely.
When you go to local council areas and those places where you see them all lined up outside, they're waiting to be shared smoke, so they can vote.
That you just said is very relevant, but the truth is, when you leave the LCDAs and you go home, in your homes, did you cross carpet? Did you move to another party?
Is
the
stomach
question.
infrastructure.
I don't agree that it has to be.
look, the people,
Conviction is your conviction.
the people do not, at the moment in Nigeria, the people are not really about the parties.
Shegun, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but we're being run off
it's
the
not
stage.
about party, it's
We're being
about
run off the stage.
stomach infrastructure.
Devoe, I do apologize. We want to take this conversation further, but we can't. We might have to reschedule it because we have breaking news in Sokoto where we have Jamil Mabai, who is at the location of one of the strikes. Well, we don't know if this was one of the strikes that went off or not, but we have information that some strikes went off in desolate places that have no records of any bandits or terrorists, or whatever you want to call them, while others actually landed and they had no demolition. So thank you very much, Devoe, and thank you very much, Segun, for coming through inside the studio.
Devoe, Okorie, public affairs analyst, and Segun Sopitan, he is a current affairs analyst as well, giving us insight as we looked at the politics for 2025. Let's